Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the John Campea Show here on the first of a brand new month. I hope you guys had a fantastic Halloween last night. Tell you exactly what Ann and I did. We decided to just spend a quiet evening home alone. She came home. We ordered some food. I haven't ordered pizza since she left for Hong Kong, so we ordered some pizza and wings. We watched the other night's episode of Lucifer. We got caught up on Rebels, and then we just fell asleep on the couch. It was a glorious, relaxing evening, something we don't get an awful lot of these days, so it was a great Halloween night. What did you guys end up doing? I know we did our Halloween partying like on the weekend. We went to a bunch of Halloween parties on Saturday. For those of you who follow me on social media, you probably saw a whole bunch of the pictures that we posted up about our various costumes that we wore. So anyway, I hope you guys had a wonderful, fun, safe Halloween and that you guys are, planning your dentist's appointments early. Look, even though we don't give out candy, I still am, I admit, November 1st is, and like October 31st, November 1st, are my big days to go to the grocery stores because they've got these big, huge bags of candy that they didn't sell and now they just got to get rid of them. And so you get a giant sack of Reese's peanut butter cups for 50 cents. I admit it, this is my splurge time of the year. I'm probably going to go out and buy a whole lot of things that are absolutely terrible for me. Listen, guys, this is the show where we talk about all of our favorite things, particularly in the area of movies and TV and entertainment and things like that. And here's how today's show is going to go. I have picked out a bunch of topics and questions that you guys have sent in to me. Now, how do you guys send in a topic or a question to get on the John Campea Show? It's simple. Just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. That's john@thejohncampeashow.com. And make sure, guys, this is very important, put that word topic in the subject line. If you don't put the word topic in the subject line, I'm not going to see your question. Also, very important, guys, keep your emails to 90 words or less, or else I'm not going to be able to use them. Okay, then after we do the questions and topics you guys sent in, for those of you who are watching live, I'm going to want to hear your comments and your topics and things you guys want to bring up. For those of you who are watching me live, near the end of the show, I'm going to save a little bit of time and I'm going to ask you guys to start tweeting in. You're just going to tweet to me at John Campea. It's just that simple. I will get through as many tweets as I can, and maybe you will see your tweet pop up on the bottom of the screen here. All right. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's dive into it. And I'm going to start off with this. Yesterday, it came out that Henry Cavill, talking about who is Superman, and I believe, at all due respect to Christopher Reeve and Brandon Routh, and who both I think are fantastic Supermen. I think Brandon Routh is the best Superman we've ever had. I think Brandon Routh was great. I think Henry Cavill is the best Superman we've ever had. I think he's fantastic in the role. But he gave some comments in response to some questions he was being asked about, the state of DC movies and things like that. Now, the success or failure of DC movies is always the hot button topic for a lot of discussion, stuff like that. So Henry Cavill weighed in, and he had some really interesting things to say about the subject that got a lot of people's attention. Some people's attention for the right reasons, some people's attention for the wrong reasons. But let's look at for a second. Here's what Henry Cavill had to say about where the DC cinematic universe has been, where they are now, and where he believes they're going, okay? Because I think a lot of people have just been focusing on what he said about where DC has been, but let's talk about this. Here's what Henry Cavill had to say. He said the following: even if Marvel didn't exist, we'd struggle. There was a style that they, DC, were going for, an attempt to be different and look at things from a slightly different perspective, which hasn't necessarily worked. Yes, it has made money, but it hasn't been a critical success. It hasn't given everyone that sensation which superheroes should give the viewer. Okay, so that's the part of the statement that I think a lot of people are talking about. Now, before we talk about those comments, it's important to note that Henry Cavill didn't stop his comments there. He went on to talk about where DC films are now and where he sees them going. Now, does he believe mistakes have been made? Yes, he believes some mistakes have been made. But he believes that the mistakes have just actually helped put DC on the right track. Here's what he went on to say after that. He said the following: I feel like now the right mistakes have been made and they haven't been pandered to, and we can start telling the stories in the way they need to be told. It is even better, I like that he said that, it is even better to come back from a mistake or stylistic error into the correct vein because it will make it seem that much stronger. Wonder Woman was the first step in the right direction. Okay, so now let's talk about a couple things that he said here. And I thought it was fascinating what he said. And you know what? I think Henry Cavill could be a damn politician because he just knows how to properly handle and how to properly communicate his thoughts on these things. Look, everybody knows what I think of Man of Steel. I think Man of Steel is one of the top 10 greatest comic book movies of all time. I think it's that good. I think it's misunderstood. I think there are some people who miss the point of it, but that's fine. Everybody's allowed to love or hate whatever movie they want. I have no problem with that. But you know what I think of Man of Steel. But Henry's not wrong when he says it didn't give everybody that sensation that these superhero movies should give people. He's not wrong about that. I mean, it worked for me, but just because it worked for me didn't mean it worked for the vast majority of the audiences out there. And we saw that Man of Steel was a pretty divisive film, even though you got a few people like me still waving the flag for it, and I love it. Same can obviously be said of Suicide Squad. Same can obviously be said for Batman versus Superman. It worked for some of us, but for a lot of people it didn't. And what Henry Cavill, I think, is simply stating the obvious. He's not breaking new ground here. He's simply stating the obvious. These movies did not work for enough people. I mean, and I don't think that there's anybody, big DC fan or not, would necessarily disagree with that. I mean, even the biggest DC fan would have to acknowledge, yeah, Cavill's right. It did not work for enough people. They didn't quite work. And I completely agree with them. They were going for something a little bit different. And I have always contended that the problem with the DC Cinematic Universe, what problems there are, had nothing to do with style, but because I actually appreciated the style and the tone they were going for. I think the mistakes lied in other things. But, you know, a lot of people over at Warner Brothers and some others do think the tone was the problem, and I respect different opinions. That's fine. So he was saying, you know, we tried something different. It didn't quite resonate the way we wanted it to, and they didn't quite work. I don't think there's anything wrong with him saying that. Even as somebody who thinks Man of Steel is a top 10 comic book film of all time, even I have no problems with him saying that. That's fine. But I think it's important to understand that he said all of that simply as a setup for his following comments. Let me bring up the second part of his comments again here. The second part of his comments, and I think they're worth reading out again. I feel like now the right mistakes have been made, and they haven't been pandered to, and we can start telling the stories in the way they need to be told. It is even better to come back from a mistake or a stylistic error into the correct vein because it will make it seem that much stronger. Wonder Woman was a step in the right direction. And I think he's pointing out something that's pretty crucial here. Look at the response from the audience, from the critics, from the box office that Wonder Woman got. That first step in a new kind of style. It's just a small deviation. It's a small course adjustment. But Warner Brothers, and this is the one thing, you know, I'm very critical of Warner Brothers when I believe they make big mistakes. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that I am very critical of Warner Brothers when they make big mistakes. But I have been saying for the last number of months, I believe Warner Brothers is also very smart because they made mistakes. But we've seen Warner Brothers take a step back and say, okay, we need to course correct. We can't just be stubborn and keep doing exactly what we're doing. We need to course correct. Where's the right course corrections? And I think they've had the foresight. I think they've handled it very well. Not that everything is 100% glorious, but I think they've been handling it right. And I think Henry Cavill's statements kind of point towards that. That's the feeling. That's the mentality they have over there right now. It's like, yeah, we're not going to stick our heads in the sand. We admit we made a couple of mistakes. We did some things that didn't quite work with the larger audience like we wanted to. We took a risk and it didn't work. And you know what? I'm fine with that. I'll always be fine with that. When you take risks, most of the time they don't work, but you're not going to get big successes unless you take risks. Warner Brothers took some risks. Didn't quite work out the way they wanted to. Perfectly fine. No problem. As long as you're not a stubborn company and say, well, tough, we're just going to keep doing things the way we do them anyway. No, Warner Brothers took a step back, changed some of their leadership around a little bit, made some minor course corrections, and now they're heading in a little bit of a different direction. And it seems to be working. And I think that's what Henry Cavill is talking about. I think those first comments about, okay, what we did didn't work, is simply setting the stage for the second thing that he was talking about, which is, I think now that we've made a course correction, the fact that we made a couple of small errors before is going to make the new stuff seem even better. And I think that's, now, whether he's right or wrong, we will find out. November 16th is coming up pretty quick, but John, it opens on November 17th. Well, we all know it really opens on the 16th, on the Thursday night. November 16th is coming up really quick. It's just a day or two, over 2 weeks away now. We're going to see, and we're going to know whether he's right or wrong. We're going to know whether he's right or wrong. But I think there was nothing wrong with his statements. I think they were just perfectly accurate. And I think if you're somebody like me who's looking forward to Justice League, I think his comments should not be taken as a negative thing, but read all of his comments in context. And really what he's doing is setting up to say, hey guys, we're heading in the right direction. We're getting better. It doesn't matter if you thought we were good before. We're going to be even better. And I think that's what Henry Cavill is talking about. And I think his comments make no impact if he doesn't start off with honesty and start off his comments with saying, hey, what we did before maybe didn't quite work the way we wanted it to. If he doesn't start off his comments with like that, I don't think the second half of his comments have nearly as much weight. But because he starts off his comments with the honesty, with like, hey, worked for some people, didn't work for others, hasn't quite worked out the way we want to. But now we see that Wonder Woman was the first step in the right direction. We've adjusted our tone a little bit. We think we're in the right vein now, and we think people are going to appreciate it. I think too many people are looking at Henry Cavill's comments here and only looking at one part of his comments without looking at the context of his entire body of comments and what it all means altogether. So yeah, if you want to pick and choose just one line out of his comments when he says, hey, the DC films haven't quite worked yet. If you just want to take that one line, then it sounds like Henry Cavill saying one thing. If you take his entire statement and put it in context, yeah, he's saying they didn't quite work before, but the meaning of his statement is we are heading in a good direction right now. That's the overall meaning of his statement. If you just take the one sentence, it sounds like he's saying we dropped the ball. If you take his entire comment, it sounds like he's talking about we're heading in the right direction. And I think that's the takeaway people need to have. Now, I know a lot of people have a lot of very strong opinions about, obviously, the DC thing altogether, but Henry Cavill's comments, all kinds of stuff. But that's my perspective. My perspective is there's nothing wrong with what he said. And the overall message is, hey, guys, have hope. We are heading in the right direction. And I think that's cause for some enthusiasm. Maybe you don't think so. Maybe you read his comments and you honestly think, hey, John, I'm hearing what you're saying, but I read his comments and I still think he's being negative. That's fine. Jump into the comments section. Let me know what you guys think of that. Or if you're watching live, get ready to send in some tweets and give me your perspective on this. We're going to get to that in just a few minutes. All right. Now, with that out of the way, let's get to the first email question today. And the first email question today comes to us from Matt RRR, who writes, Sup, John, have you seen that new Star Wars poster with Luke holding his lightsaber? Now, the promotions have given us hearing Luke speak for the first time and seeing him wield his father's old lightsaber. I feel like both these things would have been more deserving to have been at the end of The Force Awakens. These are pretty big reveals. Do you think these were the best ways to reveal them? Okay, so one of the things he's talking about here is this new international poster. I've got just a portion of it here that looks an awful lot like the regular Force Awakens poster, except instead of Luke being at the top, they put Rey at the top. You can see Rey right here. They put Rey at the top in the middle, and they have Luke here on the side, but Luke holding his lightsaber. So when this poster came out, a whole bunch of people started tweeting me because I've been saying, you damn well better show me Luke schooling some fools in this movie. I want to see Luke kicking some ass. I mean, I want to see Luke doing his thing. So I had a whole bunch of people tweeting to me when this poster came out saying, John, look, they just confirmed Luke is going to fight with his lightsaber. See, it's confirmed. I want to be excited. I do. Trust me, I want to be excited about this. However, Lucasfilm has a little bit of a history with their marketing stuff that doesn't necessarily line up all the time with what's going to be in the movie. Now, I'm not even talking about Rogue One, where there was clearly a lot of shots in the Rogue One trailers that were not in the movies. That's fine. But I'm talking about promotional posters altogether. Let me bring up a picture here. Some of you might recognize this picture. Some of you might not. Take a look at this picture. Good old picture of Darth Vader holding a lightsaber. Do you know what that picture is from? Do you guys remember? Are you guys remembering this particular picture and what that's from? I'll let you know. That picture was an official piece of the marketing campaign of Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. This picture was part of the official marketing campaign for Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. For those of you who remember, an awful lot of the marketing for Star Wars Revenge of the Sith featured Vader. And not just the traditional marketing like movie trailers, but also like the fast food chain restaurants that were doing promotionals for the movie as well. A lot of them had Darth Vader in it, even though Darth Vader's in like 3 minutes of the movie. But I mean, Vader in the outfit, like 3 minutes tops in the movie. No! But you might also remember this. Look at Vader there holding that lightsaber. Vader never held no lightsaber in Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, not in the outfit. We never once saw in Star Wars Revenge of the Sith Darth Vader, as we know him in the black outfit, never once did we see him hold the lightsaber. So, when I see marketing now, particularly an image, a poster, of Luke holding a lightsaber, I can't get that excited. Why would I get that excited? You've done this to me before, where you made us believe, oh my gosh, we're going to see Darth Vader in Revenge of the Sith, and he's going to start killing some Jedi, and blah, blah, blah. Nope, never saw it. Never happened. It wasn't in the movie. So, I am not going to rush to an assumption here that just because they have Luke in a poster holding a lightsaber, that necessarily means we're going to see that in the movie. And maybe he does hold it in the movie. Maybe there is a scene where, I've got to believe we're going to see Luke Skywalker at some point holding a lightsaber. I got to believe that's going to happen. But just because it looks like he's in some kind of battle stance, that doesn't mean we're going to see him in a fight. I'm not saying he won't. We damn well better. I really hope we do. But I can't get excited about it because they've done this to me before. So how can I get terribly excited about it? I don't know that I can. All right, let's move on to the next topic. And the next topic today comes to us from Lori Denise, who writes, "Hey, John, you mentioned about a week ago that it's possible Disney might have been interfering with Justice League by releasing The Punisher on November 17th. Now I hear they're also releasing Star Wars Battlefront II on the same day. Doesn't it seem even more suspicious to have two Disney properties releasing the same day as Justice League comes out?" Well, okay, first of all, let's be clear here. I did not say that Marvel was releasing Punisher specifically to interfere with Justice League. I said, hey, look, if I had to put money on it, it's just purely a coincidence. Remember, like the first Friday or this third Friday of the month is exactly the same day that they released Defenders as well. Third Friday of the month. That's when they released Defenders. Now, Punisher wasn't going to release on the 17th. They were going to release a little bit earlier. Netflix and Marvel decided, in light of the incident in Las Vegas, that they would push it off a little bit, which is I would have been fine if they didn't push it off, but I understand why they did it, and I have no problem with the fact that they did. It was probably a good move to do that. So, and they just happened to make it land on the 17th. And what I said specifically is, look, it's probably just that they thought was the best date for their game or their show to release. And it probably has nothing to do with Justice League. But I said, but even I will go, well, that seems a little fishy that you would drop it on the same day as Justice League. And of course, Marvel or Disney has another property, Star Wars, and a big major game release with Battlefront 2 is also coming out on that exact same day. Now, some people will say, as I've heard some people say, but John, it's not Disney that decides the release date, it's EA. I think it would be a little naive to not believe that the rights holder, that the license holder, doesn't have some influence on when a game gets released, that has their license in their property in the game title. I think it's a little bit naive not to think that the one of the most powerful companies in the world and the license holder doesn't have some influence on that. I think you have to acknowledge that they do. That being said, if follow the logic here, if Disney was releasing or wanted the game Star Wars Battlefront 2 to be released on the 17th specifically to interfere with Justice League, well, follow that logic through. Wouldn't they then, by logic, be also interfering with the launch of Punisher? I mean, if we're going to say that Battlefront 2 is an attempt to interfere with the launch of Justice League, then wouldn't it also stand to reason that it would interfere with the launch of Punisher? And vice versa, launching Punisher might interfere with initial game sales of Battlefront 2? Or is it just that Netflix put out the last Marvel show on the third Friday of the month, and that just happens to be November 17th this month, and that's when they're releasing it. And it just so happens to be the game release, and maybe they don't think there's going to be a lot of interference all the way around. I just, look, I'm going to say this. Does it on the surface look a little bit fishy? Sure. Disney has two major properties, Punisher, Star Wars Battlefront II, both releasing on the same day as Justice League. On the surface, does that look a little bit fishy? Yes, of course it does. Obviously it does. But if you really think about it, is there actually some kind of attempt going on here of subterfuge? Is there some kind of cloak and dagger stuff going on here? I really don't think so. I don't think that's really the case. Look, I won't be shocked if 15 years from now, Kevin Feige retires and he writes a tell-all book, and in one of the chapters he reveals, and there was that time we really stuck it to DC with the launch of Justice League by putting out Battlefront 2 and Punisher on the same day. I mean, maybe he'll do that, and then I won't be shocked, but I think common sense says it's probably not the case. So anyway, that's just my thought on that. All right, let's move on. Next question comes to us today from Hendra Juni, who writes, I read somewhere in an interview, Simon Pegg said that he and Edgar Wright had joked about doing a Shaun of the Dead sequel called From Dusk Till Shaun. As a huge fan of Shaun of the Dead, it got me really excited at the prospect of another Shaun of the Dead movie. Although Pegg was only joking about it, do you think we will ever see a Shaun of the Dead sequel? And okay, so what he's basically talking about, is, it might have been last week or longer than that. Somebody asked him straight up, hey, have you written a Shaun of the Dead 2? And Simon Pegg said, well, actually, I did write a treatment. I wrote a treatment for Shaun of the Dead 2 that also involved vampires. And we were kind of jokingly referring to it as From Dusk Till Shaun. Shaun of the Dead 2 From Dusk Till Shaun. Which I think sounds remarkable. I think that sounds great. And, he was kind of joking about it. Honestly, it didn't sound, on the one hand, yeah, he was clearly kind of joking around, and it did sound that. But what is true is he did write a treatment for it. That part is true. As a matter of fact, let me pull something up here. It might take me a moment or two to get to it. So, and I should have done this earlier, to be honest, but I didn't. Look, one of the tricky things, though, about doing a possible Shaun of the Dead 2 is the fact that one of the major headline, not just stars, but also characters of Shaun of the Dead, which is, of course, Nick Frost. Nick Frost, who did Shaun of the Dead with him. I'm going to give a little bit of a spoiler alert, but this is like a 10-year-old movie, so you should know that this is coming. Okay, so here's the thing. In Shaun of the Dead, his the best friend, of course, Nick Frost, he ends up dead. I mean, he ends up a zombie at the end of Shaun of the Dead 2, right? So obviously, you can do Shaun of the Dead, or a second one, but you're going to have to do it without Simon Pegg. And I'm trying to find this image, and I'm having a hard time finding an image. Oh, here it is. You know what? I'm going to bring this up here, and we'll see if it means... Okay, so a number of years ago, and this is relevant. But trust me, I'm telling you the truth here. This is relevant. A number of years ago, I'm at a party, and there it is right there in the middle, and I'm at a party with Simon Pegg. And Simon Pegg and I are hanging out, and we're chatting, and we're talking about certain things. And of course, being a big Shaun of the Dead fan that I am, I was very curious about, hey, where we're going to do Shaun of the Dead. So normally, when I'm hanging out in a social situation with like a writer or a director or an actor or something like that, if it's a social situation, I try not to talk about movies per se, other than to say, hey man, I loved you in this, or I liked something that you did, or whatever. But other than that, I tried to stay away from them, but I couldn't help myself. And I kind of said, so come on, like really, are we going to get a sequel to Shaun of the Dead, do you think? And what he told me, then I don't believe is anything in confidence, and I don't believe it's anything you haven't heard before, but what he told me was, we're looking at something, and we're kind of putting something together. I don't know if it'll happen, but I'm writing something. So that was like X number of years ago. So clearly at some point, there was some thought being put into doing a Shaun of the Dead 2. Clearly at some point, there was some thought of that. They'd have a big problem, though. Like, what do you do? Nick Frost is part of the magic of Shaun of the Dead. So what do you do? Do you have him cured of his zombieism, or do you just kind of have him play along as a zombie for the rest of the movie? I mean, I don't know. I have no idea which way they would go with that, but it doesn't sound like it's going to happen. Edgar Wright is a hot name with Baby Driver right now and the success it had. He's a hotter name right now than he's ever been. Simon Pegg obviously is doing a lot of work both as an actor and as a writer now because he wrote the last Star Trek movie, which I actually thought was the best Star Trek movie of the new era of Star Trek movies. I thought and Simon Pegg wrote it. I mean, so he's really busy as an actor, as a writer. So whether they'll ever get around to Shaun of the Dead 2, I'm starting to doubt it. Plus, let's keep in mind, Shaun of the Dead never actually made that much money. So there would be a business case to say, hey, maybe they shouldn't do another one. But who knows? We'll have to wait and see. I know I would be all for it. I would love it. All right, let's move on. Next question comes to us from Ethan. And Ethan writes, with the confirmation that there are already 2 more seasons planned for Stranger Things, do you fear that the popularity of the show might make Netflix keep stretching the show out instead of having a definitive end in mind? Well, thanks a lot for the question, man. And yeah, just recently I watched Stranger Things Season 2. I put my review up for it. You can find that on my YouTube channel. So if you want to see my full review of Stranger Things 2, check it out there. I liked it very much. I thought it was better than Season 1. I really did. I thought in every way it was a better season than Season 1. And even with everybody talking about Episode 7, I liked Episode 7. I thought that Episode 7 was meant to lay groundwork for future seasons that are coming. So I liked it on that level. So there are some people who didn't like that one episode, but generally overall, everybody loved Stranger Things Season 2. I'm one of them. Here's the thing. Yes, the showrunners have said we have it planned out for a 4-season arc and that's it. Yes, they've said that. Should we be worried, though, that the popularity of Stranger Things might make Netflix go, you know what? No, we want a season 5. So let's put together a season 5. Here's my response for that. Fine. If they come up with a great story idea for season 5 and think that they can do a season 5, do season 5. Look, I think Supernatural was supposed to end after season 7. I think that was the plan. I think now we're in season 12 or 13 now of Supernatural, and I'm still loving the show. I'm eating that show up. I love that they keep coming up with new story ideas for every season, and I'm loving that thing. I know the plan was to end after that, but you know what? Look at Heroes. Heroes, I still contend that season 1 of Heroes is my single favorite season of television. That first season of Heroes is my favorite single season of television ever. I love that first season. They had a plan for 4 or 5 seasons, but it fell off after 1 season. Stranger Things 2 could have been a disaster. They can say, oh, we've got a plan for 4. That doesn't mean season 2 is going to be any good. It could have been terrible. They may say they have a plan for 4 seasons, but if they come up with a great idea to continue the story, why not continue the story? Why not? If you've got a good idea. Now, if it's like, we can't think of anything good for them to do now. Okay, well, we'll just do something. Who cares? Okay, yeah, then that's bad. But these are obviously very creative people who have been able to put a couple of really good seasons together already. Why are we dispelling the whole notion that maybe these people can come up with a great idea for a season 5 or a season 6? I'm not saying that's what they should do. I'm just saying, why would we be closed off to the idea so prematurely? Look, for all we know, season 3 is going to be terrible. And there never will be a season 4 for all we know. So let's just take a breath and go, hey, let's see what they come up with. Let's see what they do. All right, last email question of the day, and then we're going to go over to the live questions from you guys who are watching live, and you've been so patient. And the next email question comes to us from Alex Pitt, who writes, hey, John, I love the show and everything you do for the movie fan community. Thank you so much, Alex. My question is about Murder on the Orient Express. I am super excited about it, and I'm super excited about it and have already booked my tickets. But where are the reviews? When does the review embargo lift? And have critics even seen the movie yet? It opens up in a couple of days. Well, thanks a lot for the question, man. You know what? Let me pull this up. Let's see here. Murder on the Orient Express release date. The movie opens on November 10th, so it's like over a week away. It's a week and a half away. I'm seeing it in a few days. And I know the review embargo is lifted when I see it. So, and that's pretty standard. Sometimes movies lift review embargoes like weeks in advance. I'm seeing this just a couple of days, a number of days, I should say, before the movie opens. And by the time I see it, Yeah, I'm seeing it on I'm seeing it on Monday. And there is no review embargo for it, so you're probably going to start seeing reviews for it Monday morning. That's 1, 2, 3, that's 4 days away from the opening of the film. I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing. You know, anywhere between 3, 4, 7, 8 days, I think that's a good normal window. Then you had like Thor Ragnarok, which lifted the review embargo like 2 weeks early, because that's just part and parcel for Marvel if they really think a movie is strong. But I think 4 days in advance for a movie like this, I think is perfectly fine. Here's the thing. What Murder on the Orient Express doesn't want to do is lift the review embargo right around when Thor Ragnarok opens. You lift the review embargo, let's say today, okay? Let's say they lifted the review embargo for Murder on the Orient Express today. Great, people are going to hear some buzz, and then that buzz is going to get killed because Thor Ragnarok, which is going to be a huge audience favorite, opens in less than 48 hours. All right? So that would kill any buzz they get or any momentum they get from positive reviews that come out if they get positive reviews. I haven't seen the movie yet, but if it gets positive reviews, that positive reviews are going to drown out. So what are they doing? Okay, let's lift the release date on the 6th or the 7th, whatever. So Thor Ragnarok opens, give it 24, 48, 72 hours. Now release the reviews for Murder on the Orient Express and they won't get lost. Because I think if you lift the review embargo right now for Murder on the Orient Express, I think no one's even going to pay attention because everybody's talking about Thor and Thor Ragnarok. So anyway, that's just kind of the way I see it. So, and yes, I'm with you. I'm completely looking forward to Murder on the Orient Express. I love this guy. Kenneth Branagh, to me, can do no wrong. I just love the dude. This is, by the way, speaking of Thor, this is the guy, this actor right here, this is the guy who directed the first Thor film. And I also have the first Thor film. If you saw my top 10 comic book movies of all time list, I put the first Thor in that list. I think that's another underappreciated, brilliant comic book film that's made by a brilliant filmmaker and storyteller that I just think people underappreciate. All right, guys, now just before, and you can start tweeting in, for those of you watching live, you can start tweeting in now, but just before I get to those live tweets, I want to take my commercial break here for my daily shameless plug on my Patreon page. Now, of course, I left my corporate overlords. I no longer do this for a corporation. I do this on my own, and in order to do it on my own and dedicate my full time to it, I'm only able to do it because of the support of my Patreon supporters. Listen, guys, do me a favor. If you guys enjoy my content and you spend some hours every month watching the content I do me a favor and go on over to www.patreon.com/John Campea. Get all the information there about, number one, what it means to be a Patreon supporter of mine. Number two, how being a Patreon supporter actually makes these shows possible. And number three, the benefits of being a Patreon supporter. So go on over there, read that stuff up. And then after reading it, if you want to become a Patreon supporter, that's awesome. And if you don't, that's perfectly fine too. I'm just glad you're here watching the shows with us. Okay, with all of that out of the way now, let me open up my Twitter stream here and get this stuff all set up and ready to go. And we are going to start with the first tweet today. Remember, I'm doing this all by myself, so I don't have time to go through all these questions or vet them. So here we go. First tweet of the day comes to us from TCAL24, who writes, John, how do you think they will explain Clark's return without everybody being suspicious that he's Superman? Easy. I've talked about this before. It is so simple. So simple, just to say, that wasn't the Clark. We thought we found Clark Kent's body. That wasn't his body. Oh, he was actually injured, lost his memory, and wandered off, and has just now come back. There's lots of ways to do it. Now, then people would say to me, but John, there was a funeral. Yeah, there was a funeral, but it was a small, tiny, private funeral at an outback farm in Kansas, with only a limited number of people that were actually there. So as far as how big of a problem that becomes, it's actually pretty containable. Look, if we're living in a universe where Superman, I don't have any glasses here, where Superman can just, I'm Clark Kent, now I'm Superman. If we can accept that, if we can accept that everybody at the Daily Planet can be 2 feet from Superman, but not know it's Superman because, I got the glasses on, then it's really not that big of a stretch for them to come up with a story hook that says, here's why we thought Clark Kent was dead, and here's how the few people that were at the small private funeral in Kansas were either tricked or they were brought into, or whatever. I'm sure they can come up with something. In a universe where Superman, Clark Kent, Superman, Clark Kent. In that universe, you can come up with something. It's not that difficult. It's not that hard. I think out of all the things that Justice League needs to do, I think handling the death of Clark Kent is one of the smaller problems that they have to deal with. I'm not worried about that one at all. Okay, let's see here. Next one comes to us from Point Blizzy, who writes, John, touchy subject, I know, but if you had to, who would you choose as a Leia replacement? I think Jamie L. Curtis could nail it. Look, I think there are many actresses in that age range. And everybody knows my first choice, to me, the only way to properly honor Carrie Fisher, the only way to properly respect Carrie Fisher and all the work and sacrifice and blood, sweat, and tears and dedication she gave to the Star Wars fan community and to the Princess Leia character is to pick up the ball for her and carry it across the finish line for her and recast the Princess Leia character. I think that is the only true way to honor what she did. Everybody knows my feelings on this. Because there are some people out there, and with all due respect, I know your heart is in the right place. But there are a lot of people out there who go, to recast Leia is disrespectful. And your heart's in the right place. I'm not angry at anybody who has that opinion because your heart's in the right place. And I understand your motivation for saying that is because you want to honor the memory of Carrie Fisher. And if that's your motivation, then, you and I are on the same side. Okay. However, I disagree with you strongly about what is the proper way to honor Carrie Fisher. I've said this before. I will say it again. Carrie Fisher, just read about what she put herself through to come back for The Force Awakens. Just look at what she put herself through to come back for The Force Awakens. And now she's fallen. Okay. You think the way to honor her is to say, oh, too bad she fell. Well, let's just brush the Princess Leia character away. No, the way you honor her is you pick up the ball for her. And you say, don't worry, Leia. Don't worry, Carrie. We got your back. Don't worry, Carrie. You rest in peace. We'll carry this across the finish line for you. That's how you honor her. That's how you honor what Carrie Fisher has meant to the Star Wars fan community for generations. That's how you do it. Not brush the Princess Leia character away. That's not how you honor her. That is not how you do it. You say, hey, thank you, Carrie, for carrying the ball this far, for getting us as far as you got. Don't you worry about it. We got your back. We'll carry the ball across the finish line for you. That's how you honor her. Any other thing to me is disrespectful. Even though I believe your motivation for saying don't recast her is because you want to honor Carrie Fisher. And for that, so we have no fight. We have no quarrel. I just disagree with you vehemently about how you honor her. And that's what I think. So Jamie Lee Curtis, sure, absolutely. Meryl Streep, greatest actress of all time. Sure. I guarantee if Lucasfilm let the world know, we're going to as a way to honor Carrie Fisher, we're going to recast this. And in her name, we're going to carry this character across the finish line. And they put out to Hollywood, we need somebody to come in here and help us honor the memory of Carrie Fisher and honor the Princess Leia character. I guarantee you every great actress will line up to be in that role. Everyone from like Meryl Streep to Keaton to Curtis to all of them. They will all line up for miles around to, number one, play Princess Leia, but number two, to honor Carrie Fisher by carrying the ball across the finish line for her. That's what would happen. Anyway, sorry, I'm very passionate about this particular topic. I feel very strongly about this topic. So anyway, so I can go off and ramble a little bit on that. Okay, let's move on. Next tweet comes to us from John. Have you heard any news about the Chris Pratt movie Ninja Viking Pirate? I remember hearing about it on Collider a long time ago. Yeah, so I might be mistaken. I think they may have shot it. If I'm not wrong, I'm trying to remember now at the top of my head, and this is one of the problems of taking live Twitter questions. I'm not prepared for any of these, but I might have heard that they actually started production a long time ago. They might have shot it already. Either that or it's on the back burner. I'm not really sure. It's definitely a movie I'm interested in because, yeah, you're right. We talked about it ages ago. You know what? I think we even talked about Ninja Viking Pirate back in the AMC days. I think it was all the way back then is when we talked about it. And I was excited about it then. I'm excited about it now. But now that you bring it up, I'm going to look into that. Thanks for for reminding me about that. All right. Next one comes to us from Anus Devil, who writes, John, did you hear Elfman's Friends and Foes track from Justice League? It's amazing. You can hear John Williams' Superman in it. Yeah. Yeah, I did. And just like Elfman said, because remember a lot of people were getting all excited, they're going to use the John Williams Superman theme. And it's like, no. That's not what Elfman said. He said it's going to be in there. If you pay attention, you can hear it. It's some people will catch it, some people won't. And it's exactly what Elfman said it was. And it's good. I like it. I mean, it's hard to tell how well that piece of music works, or any piece of music, out of context when you're not seeing it in context. Because part of the job of the music is to breathe life into a scene. And it might be a great piece of music, but does it work with the scene? We don't know yet. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe it'll be the greatest thing ever. Maybe it won't work. We'll have to wait and see. All right, this next one comes to us from S. McQueed, who writes, John, since Martin Scorsese is only producer and not a director for the Joker movie, does it mean that he doesn't want to be involved that much? No, not necessarily at all. Look, when you hear the term producer, that can mean a million different things, okay? That can mean a million different things. Now, the true producer of a film is incredibly involved. The true producer. Now, you get the true producer, maybe 2 or 3 of them actually, and then you'll get like 8 other guys that get the name producer attached to their name that really didn't do anything. Like Steven Spielberg has had his name attached of a producer on a lot of films where he simply sat down and consulted with the filmmakers for a day. It's like, boom, producer. Or Steven Spielberg said, hey, you know what? I'll make a phone call to Warner Brothers for you. Boom, producer credit, all that kind of stuff. But then there are the real producers who put in as much work as a director. If the original story was, hey, before they even signed the director, the studio was in talks with Martin Scorsese to be the producer. That to me doesn't sound like you do that just to have a guy who's got a honorary title. That sounds to me like Martin Scorsese is indeed going to be a shepherd of this project. It really does. It's possible he won't be, but to bring him in like that, because I think of it in terms of Peter Jackson's producer role on what would have been the Halo movie. Peter Jackson was clearly very involved with that film, very involved with it in trying to get that thing moving and getting all the pieces put together and picking the director and doing all that kind of stuff. I think I kind of see this as Martin Scorsese will be a producer in the way that Peter Jackson was a producer on the Halo. Hopefully we get better results because the Halo movie crashed and burned and never even got off the ground. And whereas hopefully this Joker thing will work out, but it seems to me like he's going to be a hands-on producer on this, will be quite involved, much like the way a guy like Peter Jackson was for Halo. That never actually happened. And that's just, maybe it won't be. We'll have to see, but that's the way I'm kind of seeing it at this point. All right. This next one comes to us from Kevin A. Fable, who writes, John, do you think in time Marvel will buy back X-Men from Fox, or at least work with them like how they worked with Sony for Spider-Man? Don't see it happening. The only way I mean, anything's possible. The only way that happens, if the same thing happens to Fox that happened to Sony, where Sony got themselves in massive financial trouble. They struck out with Amazing Spider-Man 2 was a big bomb, and they put tons of money into that, lots of marketing, and they felt like they kind of ruined that franchise with The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I still didn't mind The Amazing Spider-Man 2. There were lots of things in it that are awful and that I hated. I still think overall as a package, it was an okay movie. Certainly a big step down from the first Amazing Spider-Man. I thought the first Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield was great. I love that movie. But the second one was a huge step down. So they were in a very rough spot. And suddenly now they were in a spot where they needed to kind of try to breathe some life into this, and they had to do something. Fox is on a totally different level. Fox doesn't need Marvel. They don't need them at all. Fox has quietly gone about to make some of the greatest comic book movies of all time without Marvel. X-Men 1, X-Men 2, X-Men First Class, X-Men Days of Future Past, Logan, Deadpool. Have they made a couple stinkers? Sure. X-Men 3. The first Wolverine movie. Have they made a couple stinkers? Yes, they have. But they've also made some of the greatest. I mean, seriously, I still think people don't appreciate just how great X-Men Days of Future Past is. Or how great. To me, Logan is still the best movie of the year. Logan, to me, is undoubtedly the best movie of the year. Right now, that might change between now and December. We'll have to see. But Fox is doing great. They're doing wonderful. They're not in financial trouble. Their movies are doing great. There's two such totally different situations. And besides, I still don't want X-Men in the Marvel Universe. The Marvel Universe, as much as I love it, my one critique is it's too crowded. It's just too crowded. You're going to run out of viable excuses for, wait a minute, so the world's in trouble with this standalone superhero movie? Why didn't 40 other if the world's in trouble, why didn't 40 other superheroes come in and help? Why isn't every single movie an Avengers movie? You're gonna start to run out of excuses. And now you want to compile that problem by bringing in X-Men. Now, the other big difference here is this. Spider-Man, although he has a bunch of auxiliary characters, Spider-Man is really a one-character dude, whereas the X-Men, I mean, you've got like 40, 50, 60, 200, 300, 400 characters. I just see the situations being terribly different. Now, in a couple of years, something unforeseen happens. Fox is suddenly in massive financial trouble. They put out 4 films in a row that aren't received well, all that kind of stuff. Then that changes the situation. Then maybe we can start discussing if Fox will make a similar deal with Marvel like Sony did. Then we can have that kind of a talk. But until something like that happens, I don't even think it's in the realm of even possibility at this point. I really don't. All right, let's go to the next one. And the next one comes to us from, if I can get it to come up, and I made it go away. Let me see. There it is. TB12 with 5 rings says, John, how much money do you think Justice League will make opening weekend? You know, they put out initial tracking being around 120 million. New tracking numbers will come out next week as we get closer, because the closer you get is when you get a more accurate read. Right now, they're saying about 120 million. I think it's going to go up from that, because I think part of the thing that's keeping the tracking number down around the 120 range is the fact that there's a lot of attention on Thor Ragnarok. Once Thor Ragnarok releases in theaters and its opening is in our rearview mirror, then I think a little bit more attention will go to Justice League, and I think you're going to see those tracking numbers go up. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say, and I reserve the right to change my prediction next week. Next week, I might change my prediction. Right now, I'm going to go out on a limb and say 140. I'm going to go as high as 140 is where I'm going to peg Justice League. What do you guys think? What do you think? Where do you think Justice League is going to end up as far as its opening weekend numbers? Jump into the comment section. Leave me your thoughts. What's your prediction? All right. Next one comes to us from Norarco, who writes, John, would you say that Thor 3 did for Thor what Winter Soldier did for Captain America? Well, look, I think the first Captain America is a tragically underrated film. It's not top 10 all-time comic book movies, no, but I think the first Captain America is a really good movie. I think the first Thor is a really good movie. So I'm not really quite sure what we're getting at when we say, does this do for that what this did for that? I'm not quite sure there's even a discussion there to have. Let's see. Next one comes to us from John Campea. Hey, John, are you going to tonight's Justice League screening? I have a Justice League screening lined up. It is not tonight. But I'm going to be seeing it. I'm not allowed to say when I'm going to be seeing it, but I can say it's not tonight. I'm not seeing it tonight. So next one comes to us from The Rock is Born, who writes, John, pretend you work for Fox. You see Sony's Spider successless box office. What do you pitch to fix about Fantastic Four? Well, look, Spider-Man and Fantastic Four are 2 completely different properties that come from completely different circumstances. Fantastic Four has never had success on the big screen. Spider-Man has had big success on the big screen. So I don't think you can use Spider-Man as any kind of a template at all for what you do with Fantastic Four. They're just 2 completely different properties coming out of completely different circumstances. So you can't make an equation to them anyway. All right, this next one comes from us from Tarek FFT, writes, John, with all the Ben Affleck rumors this year, how many more DCEU movies do you think he'll be in? I think there's a 50% chance he'll be in 1 more. I've said that from the beginning. After Justice League, I believe it's a 50-50 proposition that he'll be in 1 more. So it's possible he's in 1 more. I don't even think he'll be in 1 more, but like I said, 50-50. I'm not sure which way that'll go. I am very confident he won't be in another one after that. So I hope I'm wrong. Ben Affleck, and I hope all the information I know is wrong, because to me, I'm very on the record about this. Ben Affleck is the best Batman we've ever had. He's the best incarnation of what the Batman is, and he exudes the spirit of the Batman better than any other actor ever has. Now, you can argue about, well, I mean, this Batman kills, and I have my own opinions about Batman killing. I think it's fine, but that has nothing to do with Ben Affleck's performance in the role. That has to do with the script. Script says Batman kills somebody, so it doesn't matter who's performing. If you just look at him as the individual and what he emotes, Ben Affleck is the best Batman we've ever had. He captures Batman far better than any other actor said. And you know, I've said this before, but I will say it again. The big key thing to me is this, is that the difference between Batman and a lot of other superhero characters is that, you look at Barry Allen. Barry Allen is Barry Allen, but he puts on a mask to become the Flash. Oliver Queen is Oliver Queen, but he puts on the mask to become Green Arrow. Tony Stark is Tony Stark, and then he puts on the armor to be Iron Man. Batman is different. Bruce Wayne is the mask. Who that guy really is, in his heart, is Batman. That's who that is. Bruce Wayne, the child, died in that alley with his parents. For all intents and purposes, Bruce Wayne died in that alley and Batman was born. And Batman is the mask. And Ben Affleck is the first actor to really capture that. Now, some people said, but John, in the Nolan movies, and I love the Nolan Batman movies. In the Nolan Batman movies, they say the same thing. Yeah, but that's not how the character was played. The way Christian Bale played that character, and Christian Bale is one of the world's great actors, but the way Bale played it was that, no, he was Bruce Wayne, who then later put on a mask to strike fear into his things. But who he really was still Bruce Wayne. The performance Ben Affleck gives is at his core, Bruce Wayne died. Bruce Wayne is the mask. He is Batman. And no other actor has ever captured that the way Ben Affleck has captured it. So anyway, sorry, I going off on a little bit of a rambling thing there. Let's go on to the next question. The next question comes to us from that Keith O'Neill, who writes, John, I don't think Edgar Wright would do a Shaun of the Dead sequel. He strikes me as a director who is always looking ahead, not behind. Well, I mean, that's true. But I can tell you, I mean, like you guys know, I've gotten together. I talk on Facebook once in a while with Edgar Wright. Edgar's very active on social media. A lot of people do. I've had him at a number of things. I've done Q&As with him. I've hosted premieres of his movies with him. He's thought about Shaun of the Dead. He's open to doing a Shaun of the Dead too. I can tell you that he is. It doesn't mean he's circling it. That doesn't mean he's fighting for it or anything like that. But look, if they can get the financial backing and some interest from a studio to do it, and I don't think they will get that backing or that interest from a studio to do it, I can tell you that Edgar Wright would do it. Sure. I think Sean Penn would do it. I think Nick Frost, I think they would all do it. The problem is that there's no empirical evidence to suggest if you put $50 million, $60 million into a Shaun of the Dead 2, that you're going to make a profit. There's no empirical evidence that suggests that would happen. So that's always going to be the problem. It's not the willingness of Edgar Wright or Simon Pegg or Nick Frost to do it. They've told me they would be into it, sure, but that's not the problem. The problem is who's going to put the money for it. I don't think anybody will. All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next question comes to us from Trevor Valentine, who writes, John, above or below 40% that if Avengers will kill off more than one main Avenger, I'd say below 40%. I'm not even convinced they'll kill off any of them. I don't believe you need to kill off any of them. I mentioned that before. You don't have to kill off anybody. You don't. Killing off characters doesn't raise stakes. All right? What Marvel cannot do, and I ranted about this about a month ago, what you cannot do is fake kill characters again. That's what, if they kill off a character, fine. If they don't kill off a character, that's fine. What you can't do is fake kill a character. That thing that Marvel has done 50 other times, that is what they've got to stop doing. And as long as they do that, then everything will be fine. But I believe under 40% is what I'll take on that. Okay, this one comes to us from Darkest Dragon 88, who writes, John Campea, do you like the idea of Luke being the main villain in Star Wars sequel trilogy? I mean, if they come up with a valid reason why that happens, then I have no problem with it. But I don't see them doing that. That's not going to happen. So not even worth thinking about. But again, if they came up with a proper, logical narrative thread that leads to that in a logical way, then I'm for it. Then I have no problem with it. Good guys turn bad sometimes. Bad guys turn good. I'm totally cool with, and I'm even cool with them doing that with Luke. I just don't see them doing that at all. Okay. Professor Oak GT writes, John, hey John, what software do you use in your live graphics? Well, I use all the Adobe stuff to make my graphics and stuff like that. To do my broadcasting, I use the pro version of Wirecast, which is a great little program. You can get it for about $1,000. And it works pretty well, but you don't make your graphics with all that kind of stuff. You have to make those graphics in other graphics programs like Photoshop or things like that. So I use a whole bunch of different stuff like that. Let's see. Dak Zach writes, John, what is going on with Space Jam 2? I'm not really sure. I mean, we heard a lot of stuff. There was LeBron James was going to be in it, then it wasn't, then he was going to be in it again. And I'm not, for all I know, they've shot the movie and it's done. For all I know, it's sitting on a shelf somewhere and they're not doing anything with it. All I can say is that I haven't heard anything new about it for quite a while. All right, guys, that will do it for me for this installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. Hey, listen, don't forget, take a second, click on that subscribe button, become a subscriber to my YouTube channel. Also, make sure you click the thumbs up button, leave a comment in the description below, and check out that Patreon page of mine. Once again, it's at www.patreon.com/JohnCampea. Get all the information there. I'll be back again a little bit later today, guys. I've got my Bad Moms Christmas review coming up here in about an hour and a half. Of course, I've got our brand new daily The Movie News feed coming up and a few other things as well. Keep your eyes open. And of course, I'll be back again tomorrow morning for the next installment of the John Campea Show. That will do it for me for now, guys. Thanks so much for joining me. And until next time, bye-bye.